Okay, so I have already covered all of this in our code. Let's go back to our Google login. Okay, so now we have come to our Google login functionality. Okay, so as you can see, Google with our Gmail account, or Google provides us with third-party authentication. That means Google will make the authentication, handle the authentication part for us. So it is very convenient to integrate Google authentication in your web applications, especially in e-commerce projects. So to log in with Google, I'm going to show you how you can implement Google login without using any third-party authentication frameworks. Like from Google, we have our Firebase and OAuth and other functionalities, other other frameworks. So we are not going to do that. We are going to simply use the Google Authentication URL that is provided by Google in their documentation, and I'm going to show you step by step. So before I start, clear your mind. Uh, Forget whatever we did earlier. Do not forget. Just clear your mind, because Google authentication might seem a bit complicated, but after you explore the documentation once or twice, it will get easier for you. Of course, you have to use it once or twice, and not just once or twice will make you fluent, but you will eventually get used to it after using on your multiple projects. So to do that, to integrate Google login with your in your application, you will need the APIs. You will have to go to the Google Cloud Console. Sorry, Google Cloud Console. Okay, make sure you are logged in with your email account, Gmail account. Okay, so when you go to Google Cloud Console, you can search it in Google. And when you come to this dashboard, you can click on API and services. Okay, if you come here, you will see that we are redirected to the Google Cloud dashboard. And as you can see up here, I have already selected a project. So if you are here for the first time, you have not created any project, it might show you a different dashboard, but don't worry, most of it is going to be same. And if you face any problem, you can also ask to your mentor. And if we come to credentials and OAuth screen, I'm going to show you what these functionalities do. Let's actually, if you are here for the first time, first thing you have to do is create a project. Okay, so I already have a project name, TechServe for you. Okay, let's name it TechServe for you test again. Okay, so we are not doing it under any organization. It is a individual project. So let's click on create. As you can see, I have multiple projects. Okay, so your new project is created, right? So click on this drop down and you can select any project you want. So this is the new project we created, TechServe for you test again, right? All right. So now after you have created a project and selected the project, you will have to come to credentials. So when you come to credentials, you get a warning that, let me zoom in, their fonts are really small for some reason. You have all this space and okay. So now you can see it better, that remember to configure the OAuth consent skin with information about your application. So what is the consent skin? So when you try to Google log in with Google in any application, you get a consent skin where you choose the account and you consent to use your Google account to log into that particular application. So that is the consent skin. So before using any credentials or any APIs, you have to set up the consent skin. So if you come to this tab, OAuth consent skin, okay, you will come to this dashboard whereas it says that choose how you want to configure and register your app, including your target users, right? So we are not making any internal application because we do not have any organization. I'm just going to select external and click on create. Now you have to give a name to your application. I'm just going to say TechSup for you. And for user email, it will take my email. You can upload your logo. It will show it in your consent skin. So it is great for user transparency. And app domain, if you have any application domain, that means you have already deployed your application to a domain, you can enter that here. Authorized domains, that means you want to authorize your domains, that means specify a domain where you will be using this project. And for developer contact information, I will just enter mine. Okay, so now click on save and continue. Okay. Now we come to our scopes. So what is scopes? Scopes express the permissions you request users to authorize for your app. That means scopes are what are the data, what data you want from the user's account. You want the email, your password, their personal information or their password. Of course, the Google isn't going to should give you the password, but what are the data or features you want from their Google account? That is, you have to set it up in your scopes. But you can skip it from here. We're going to set the scope in our code. So just click on save and continue. And if you have any organization, you can set up the test users. The test users will be able to use this project only, but we do not want to do that. We want any kind of user to be able to log in, and after that to get a summary, and then click on back to dashboard. Okay, now our OAuth consent skin is set up. Now we go back to credentials. So after that, click on create credentials, and we want to use the OAuth client ID, right? So let's click on that. Okay, now it is asking for our application type. We are developing a web application, so I'm going to select a web application. You can name the client. Let's say takes up for you Google client. Okay, so authorized JavaScript origins. This is very important. That means what is happening? Okay, so that means which domain or which origin can use this client ID. You have to specify that. You can add multiple, of course, but you cannot just leave it empty. You have to enter that. So I'm using it in our localhost, right? So I'm just going to copy the localhost. Okay. So you cannot add any routes, just the base URL. And after that, you have to enter the authorized redirect URL. So what is the authorized redirect URL? Users will be redirected to this path after they have authorized with Google. That means after the authentication is complete, the user has consented to use their Google account to log into our web application. Users will be redirected to the URI we enter here, and we have to handle all the logic after that. And all the additional data will be added to this URL as hash or parameters. So let's enter the login form here, route here. So this authorized redirect URL is very important. It is up to you where you want to handle the Google authentication logic. If you want to create another page like auth.google, you can do that, but make sure you have that page in your application. So don't just enter any random route. So make sure you have that application, or intentionally make a route where you want to handle your Google authentication. I'm just going to handle it in our home page. So I'm just going to leave it with our homepage URI, and let's click on create. Okay, now our client is ready. So depending on which JavaScript package you are using, you might need both the client ID and the client secret. But in our case, we are just going to need the client ID. Okay, now click on create. Okay. So you can come back to this dashboard anytime, and all of your data will be here. Don't worry. You can get your client ID and your client secret from here anytime you want. Okay. So now that we have completed our first step, that is getting our client ID, OAuth client ID. So now that we have got our client ID, we want to set it up in somewhere where it won't be public, because you do not want to make your Google client ID public, because then other people will have access to your users or Google users. So make sure you store it in your env file, and in your gitignore file you make sure you are not sending your env file to your Google repository. So this is a text project, we are not worried about that. So if we go to our env.staging, you can see that in our next public Google client ID, we are setting up the new ID. I have already set up a ID. Okay, so I can just paste it here, and this is our Google client ID. All right. Okay, so when setting up a Google client ID, make sure, because you are going to, of course, you are going to validate this user in your backend, right? When you try to log in from your front end, you are going to validate this user in your backend. Then after the verification is complete, you are going to see setting up the data in your database, right? So to make that, you have to make sure you have the same Google client ID in both your front end and backend. If you are developing a full stack project, if you are working with a backend developer, make sure you communicate with them and the Google client ID is the same. And when you set up your Google client ID, also make sure you remember or you check the redirect URL before setting up. Okay. So okay, now our first step is complete in integrating Google authentication to our application.